Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Tuesday, February 13th. So I thought today we'd kind of talk about inventory and the old way versus the new way. And maybe you guys should give me some pointers on what you're doing. And we'll kind of go over a few other things as well, but hang tight. All right, let's start off with what's going on today. Today we've got the cow trailer hooked up. We not only fix your lawnmowers, snowblowers, and that, we truck your cows to the butcher. Yeah, because that's one of my, well, I coined my side hustle, is we do have the dually, and one way to pay for itself is to at least move it a few times a month, right? I mean, the machine and the trailer is all paid for. But you have insurance, you have, your registrations and all that stuff that you got to cover, right? And I just got the bill for the bug. I think it's $148 for 2 years for just the registration on it. Anyhow, we've got a friend that I sold a tractor to a couple of years back. Really nice guy. And he asked us if we could truck a couple of his steers that he's raised for freezer beef up to a Mennonite family, the Millers up in Lowville. So that's what we're going to be doing first thing this morning. I may take the GoPro with me just so because something always takes place, comically. Never fails. And the other thing I was talking about is doing the Frankenstein build. And we are going to finish up on a Ford 641. We ended up, it was leaking around the exhaust gaskets. Replaced those. Found that it was the young lady that owns the tractor bought a 6-volt battery and hooked it up negative ground like most stuff is, but it turned out, which to be the case with most of them older tractors, when you run into them, they are positive ground. So whether she took out the generator or the generator was already gone, after going back and forth with her what her options were, we were able to talk her into going with a one-wire GM, get rid of the generator, and running the one wire to charge your battery. Easy peasy. So that the alternator came in yesterday. That was the only thing we were lacking. We had to put it on a new alternator, new internal resistor coil, ballast resistor for her lights because she has 6-volt lights. The brackets we made from scratch, which we always do, and the exhaust gaskets we fixed on that. So that should be finished up tomorrow and going home. So that bay is empty. That will be empty. But that brings us to parts. And the way it used to be, at least with us, is if you didn't have the part, they'd go somewhere else. They didn't want to wait and order it. You need to have it, right? And if you follow back to my meager beginnings in this industry, the small engine repair industry, we started off as just simply a little repair shop. But with my college in that field of tech, I saw the direction people were going, and that was buying it online versus buying it locally. And some of the encounters and some of the difficulties we had in the beginning. But the biggest thing is inventory. In order to list it on your big venues, eBay, Amazon, in the beginning, you need to stock it so that you're shipping it pretty quick. They weren't as strict back then when we were all cranking up at the same time. eBay was a classified ads, kind of like Craigslist. And it was trust, built on trust. That's when we got into it. But as that venue grew, so did we. I kept seeing the potential, more potential, And a lot of times, what we sneak and do on eBay is we put a listing for like a diaphragm kit or a carburetor kit, and we put our phone number in. And you didn't want to put all numbers with dashes, right? You wanted to spell it out so that it wasn't caught in the algorithm of he's got his phone number there, so click it loose, right? So we'd have people call us and order directly from us over the phone because they didn't trust to give their credit card information or anything else online. But they were okay with it through phone. And we had a lot of people want our catalogs. And what people didn't realize is we were just an up-and-coming business. We were operating out of a heifer barn. And they're thinking we're like this big stocking warehouse. And we weren't. But I remember some of the early encounters that we had to deal with. And that was people calling us and having us do the parts lookup. And the only reason they called us was to have us do the parts lookup and give them the part number. And then they would go somewhere else to see if they could find it cheaper. That used to be an issue. A friend of mine, he owns Randy's Small Engine. And he was online too at that time. But he was kind of more like the home lights and that stuff. And a lot of new old stock. Really nice guy, him and his wife. But he told me that he started charging $4 or $5 to people calling to get part numbers. I said, does that really work? And he said, yeah. He said that we asked for the credit card up front. We'll look up the part for him, give him the part number. And I said, well, how many people actually go through with it? He said, not too many. I said, well, then why do it? He said, well, because that $4 or $5 that I'm tacking on to do the parts lookup now makes our part look cheaper. If they just buy the part for X number of dollars, then to try to save $3 by going to a competitor. And it made common sense because we had our best employee, Krista. She would spend all day long in between packaging and ordering stuff and on the phone with customers, and that's all they wanted was the part number. And she would get frustrated. So I told her, so let's start. Tell them we're going to bill them $4 or $5 for doing a parts lookup up front. And before you give them the part number, give them the price on ours shipped out the door. And a lot of times they will go elsewhere and look and come back. Or they just go ahead and order it through her. She was a bulldog. But that was one of our, early things that we had going on that I can remember. But even locally, people started to realize that we were here because I didn't advertise it locally because I wasn't selling a lot locally. I was selling it online. But the added value to the local community was Eric's got the parts in stock. He's warehousing. And we can get it cheaper just by going through him than we can anywhere else. And the other thing you had to look at was if somebody lived, 30 miles away from here, it was still cheaper to buy it from us and have us mail it to them than it was for them to take an hour of their time and fuel costs to get here and come back, So and the mailing cost was like $3 on a carburetor kit, I think. But the big trend I saw was a lot of the equipment dealers, including your farm equipment dealers, they went on a lower the inventory, get rid of all of the new old stock, get it down to just the bare minimum fast moving parts, stuff they knew they would sell quickly. Everything else, it was on we can order it for you. And I know that one of the local farm dealerships, John Deere, which I'm friends with, they've got a couple different options for you. If they don't have it, they can have it there next day. They can have it there next day shipped to your house. They can have it there on their regular order or 2-day shipping. Now, for next day, there or the house, and 2 days shipping, they billed you. You covered the shipping. If you could wait for the regular order to go in, then it didn't cost you anything because they had their regular order. But it might take a week for it to go in. Maybe on a Monday you're looking for that part, and they don't put their order in until Friday. So you might have to wait. But a lot of these bigger dealers started dropping their inventory fast. And I asked them why. And they said, well, because of people like you. I said, people like me? He goes, yeah. He said, a lot of people are going online and buying it and having it shipped to their house. They're no longer coming into our dealership and buying a part when they can get it for half through an aftermarket company online. Through you, Eric, because you're selling farm tractor parts. And I was. I apologized to him, but I said, hey, business is business, right? So as their inventory control was to get rid of inventory, ours was still building. I wanted more and more and more in-house because the venues, Amazon, eBay, Walmart, Sears, they wanted it shipped as quickly as possible. And they tell you had a choice, but if you took the 30-day or the next day shipping or same day shipping by a certain time, your listing got put higher in the standing. And what they would do is they would recommend something to you. But then if you didn't go along with what they recommended, sometimes you wouldn't be seen till the second, third, fourth page of the listing. So like when they wanted to have fast shipping because they felt, their customer is who they've always been for. Even though I'm paying the bill, they call their customer our customer that we're dealing with, not us. We're just a third party given the option to sell on their venue. So they've always kept the customer in mind most of the time. And they've screwed us numerous times by doing so. But I remember the first thing was people wanted their parts fast. Because you could list something for sale and have like a 2-week shipping for handling time. And then it got down to no more than a week, 7 days. And now if you don't have the same day or next day shipping, your listing is not going to show up for quite a few clicks back, through the listings and stuff. And I remember the second thing was returns. That was a big one, because we had people returning stuff because they ordered wrong. I'd have a carburetor kit where they take a certain gasket they needed out and then send the rest of it back. So they wanted you to give like a 7-day return, and then it ended up being mandatory to a 30-day return. That after 30 days, the customer can still return that item to you, even though within 30 days I've already replaced that item on the shelf with it being sold. So that was one of the problems that started happening. But then when I was watching and I saw the Chinese coming in with their parts, and China is a communist country and it's run by this leader, and their philosophy is it doesn't matter if we lose money on it, all we do is come in and we'll take over their market and bankrupt anybody around us at a loss and gain market share, and then start raising your price, right? So when I saw that writing on the wall, I started doing what the rest of the shops locally were doing. I started trying to lower the inventory as fast as I could, because I knew it would come to a certain point of where I could not compete. And the only way I can compete today is on stuff that's heavier and that mine is shipped quickly, and they've decided that a week to 2 weeks is fine for them. And they get shown higher in the listing because they're cheaper, way cheaper. But then that brings me to what I was talking about yesterday with that box of Yamaha parts. I've got a lot of parts that the dust is still on them. I've been dusting them off that haven't been moved in years. And thinking about just taking in and putting, we have like these parts boxes, like bins type thing, and just putting them in there, the stuff that's slow movers, and having its own shelf of just new old stock, and then the fast moving stuff taking up the rest of the space. But what are you guys doing when it comes to your new old stock and your inventory controls? Are you ordering once a week? Are you stocking? I mean, we stock the oil filters, air filters, spark plugs, fuel filters, all those. Those are fast moving parts for us that we know sell because we're doing services. Carrying, new starters for the I've got starters for the older Briggs, some for the older Kohlers, brand new, still in the box. I think the one Kohler starter was like $168 back then, my cost. And you could buy that on eBay from China, an aftermarket, for like $34. But I'm not willing to sell that OEM Kohler for $34. It'll sit on the shelf. But no, I'm just curious to hear what you guys are doing that have been in it for a while. Are you thinning out your inventory? Are you going through and weeding out? Or have you had a policy of doing that every year when you do your inventories? Let me know. So on that note, I'm going to start wrapping it up. Any questions or so forth, you know where to put them in the comments. I read each and every one of them, and I respond to every one of them because you're worth it to me. But no, I like to hear what you guys are doing, or maybe ideas. Maybe you're not even in the repair business right now. You're thinking about it, but you might have a nice idea of what to do with them. I'm all ears. All right, you guys have a great Tuesday. And I'll try to get this video up early so we can get those steers picked up at the Amish and up to the Mennonites. All right, you guys have a great day.